All right, good evening. I'm going to call to order the February 11th Village Board meeting. Trustee Belkane, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we get started with the public portion of the meeting, I received a letter from the Webster Citizens Action League, and actually there were two letters inside, so as is the normal process, I'm going to take a couple minutes to read these letters. Dear Mr. Cahill, we are concerned with recent interference of the town supervisor at village board meetings. Never, historically, has a supervisor of the town been present at so many meetings of the village board. We note that his presence is unusual, perhaps unseemly, in a venue in which he has no official authority. Because of the foregoing truth, his lack of authority, we conclude his persistent presence is meant to intimidate you or the residents you represent. We base this conclusion in part on his unilateral action of having the Webster Police escort him to village board meetings. While he has refused to articulate his motivations publicly, his actions are revealing. The village board should discourage this meddling of a town supervisor in village affairs. We ask that you request the supervisor's actions cease immediately. I don't know who we are. It's signed by Eric Reynolds, chair of the Webster Citizens Action League. I want to go on record as stating that the town supervisors attending these meetings has not intimidated myself in any manner whatsoever. I have listened to his input. Some of his input I generally do agree with. And as a member of the public and a resident of the town, he is welcome to these meetings at any time, as any resident of not only this village, but this town and this community is. So therefore, I will not request that the supervisor of the town of Webster cease coming to our meetings. The next letter I have is, this was addressed to our village clerk, but it was included in this envelope. Dear Mrs. Amalfi, we are requesting your attention in recent practice of the village board in dismissing the public from the boardroom to hold executive sessions. This action contravenes prior board practice of exiting the boardroom and conducting executive sessions in the small meeting room. We point out the obvious disadvantage the public has, where it should have every advantage, to be present when the board returns from executive sessions. Furthermore, it creates the, we hope, false impression that the board believes the public should be inconvenienced for an action initiated by one or more members of the board itself. We would ask that you review the practice and request the board restore its past commitment to place the needs of the residents first. There have been occasions when we have conducted our executive sessions in this room. Sometimes there's laptops and a lot of people have papers. Now, with respect to the inconvenience, when we conduct our executive sessions in this room, we open up the small meeting room, which is approximately 20 feet down the hall. It's lit, it has chairs, and we have made that available, all right, for the public. So that's my response to that. So at this time, I will open up the public portion of the meeting. We would ask that you please give your name and address. Keep your comments to 5 minutes. So if there was anyone who would like to speak this evening, please avail yourself to the podium.
Richard Walder, 20 Elm Street. I just had one question of the board tonight. Quite a while back, rather than save the freight depot, the board voted to have it taken down and moved in hopes to save the lumber for some other purpose so that they could acquire money from the developer. The developer paid the board, or agreed to pay. At this point, I'd like to ask how much of the, I believe it was $175,000 that came about over a year ago, has the village board collected?
As was stated a year ago, in the agreement, when the C of Os are issued, that's when the payments will be made.
Well, I believe this money was for a project on North Avenue, which is going ahead now. So the village is apparently appropriating other money to take care of that. Is that true?
For the first part, correct.
Yeah. So do you have any anticipation of when you will be receiving this promised money? Any indication whatsoever?
They plan to break ground in the spring.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Eller, good evening. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Actually, tonight I would like to speak with you about speaking. Specifically, I wanted to ask the board to join me in a short stroll down memory lane. If you could imagine yourselves in this room just 6 years ago, it might strike you just how much this village board interacted with the audience. There are still videos of this era. The mayor and trustee Byers were sometimes in the audience, and trustee Lansky and Belkane were actually on the board. And I would ask you to remember when the board would call on residents to give input throughout the meeting. Now, don't get me wrong, there was still order. Audience members did not shout out. They held up their hands and waited for the board, usually the mayor, to recognize them. And the audience members were generally orderly and respectful. And the comments flew and the ideas soared, and there was this great back and forth between the people that came to the meeting and the board itself. Sometimes there was a little tension, but most of the time it was brief and productive dialogue that took place. Take, for instance, the time that Mike Brokaw asked about the delay in getting posting village videos online. The board made sure that that was taken care of. The audience was not some opposing party. It was a partner with the board. And that's not just 6 years ago. That was 16 years ago. And because this is a village, a small community, and we always had a more formal, informal give and take. People know each other, and if they didn't, they got to know each other better. And I know, and I really do know, that it can get frustrating sitting on the board. All kinds of information and comments are hurled at you. But I also know that setting rigid criteria, calling for silence, and creating enmity is counterproductive. So I'd ask this board to consider returning to an earlier era when there was dialogue and some productive back and forth. Maintain order for sure, but also maintain some mutual respect. We're all in this together after all. Perhaps then there won't be calls from the audience, and perhaps you'll really find some engaged people assisting you on making our community better together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert.
Eric Reynolds, 64 Kircher Park. I have a couple of things that I want to mention tonight. The first of which is I brought up several months ago the fact that the Monroe County Water Authority has been taking out meters that belong to the village. And there's been no reimbursement that I know of. And I would really like to know what is the status of that and when we can expect to get reimbursement for those meters. And I assume at market value rather than scrap value.
Yeah, I owe you an apology, because I did look that up, and I have the agreement. I went line by line, and I highlighted the area that shows that,
We own it.
no, it controverts what you
Okay,
said.
I would
But
very
I
much like to
apologize,
see
because
that.
I was going to bring that, and I have it, and I will make sure that I get you a copy of that. I do, I apologize to you for that. I did look it up.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then, again, that's a very poor negotiation.
Okay.
Second of all, I see that the mayor was in on the Democrat and Chronicles webpage today concerning the proposed weapons ban that has come forward. I would again urge the board to deny that completely on the grounds of the Second Amendment, which protects our First Amendment rights, and that's why we're able to all sit up here and talk. If there's no Second Amendment, none of the amendments are protected. There is no protection that can be put forth by the people to protect the amendments. That is the teeth of the Bill of Rights. Absolutely. And that's a grand way of looking at it. From a personal perspective, the ability to protect yourself is a God-given right. It's protected by the Second Amendment. You need to be able to protect yourself. We all see in the news every day that criminals go into places and they shoot the places up. But where do they do that? They're always in gun-free zones. Advertising a gun-free zone, creating a gun-free zone does not protect the people. It actually does exactly the opposite. It tells those criminals where they can go to find helpless victims. Since 1950, every mass shooting that has killed more than 3 people has been in a gun-free zone, except for 2. So you need to think about that before you put all your constituents in the entire village at risk, because that's what you're doing by creating a gun-free zone. Thank you.
Charles Griffith, 131 Curtis Park. Mr. Reynolds and I disagree somewhat on what the federal Constitution actually says. The third word in the Second Amendment is regulated. And I think that, as I have said before, and in letters and so forth, that I believe that the prudent thing for this board to do would be to provide some kind of security for people. I don't think that Mr. Elder was talking a while ago about a stroll down memory lane. And I don't recall over the 16 years or whatever that he might have been referring to that there were ever armed threats to the village board. And I think that this is a kind of fear-mongering thing, and I think that it's a distortion of the biblical injunction to turn the other cheek, and I think that it's a distortion of the Second Amendment, which provided for a well-regulated militia and being necessary to the security of a free state. And I have a copy of the federal Constitution with me, in case anybody wants to look it up. So I would applaud the board for considering a ban on dangerous weapons at the village board meetings. Thank you.
Can I ask one question, sir?
Step back up. Do you want to step back up? But I want to talk from the audience. It's up to you.
Mr. Griffith mentioned that there was some sort of armed threat. Has there ever been an armed threat to the board or anyone on the board? Has there ever been any threats made?
Not to my knowledge, I don't know.
I think he's
Anybody
referring
else?
to is that people, when, you know, it was made public that, you know, a member of the public was attending these meetings with a concealed handgun, that while it wasn't a vocalized threat, that some people have interpreted it to be threatening. Okay, because I know I've received phone calls and people are fearful. They see that as threatening to them. Not everybody has the same position that you do.
Mhm.
I think you can respect that.
I
And some
do.
people look at. But to answer your brief question, no direct, but
It's
some
also
some people see it as an implied threat. That's all.
So,
So I really don't want to get into a debate.
okay,
yeah.
has there been a weapon produced and shown in the boardroom? I mean, you're saying that there's been a weapon here. Has it been seen? So it's all conjecture? Is that? Okay, so it is conjecture.
Have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else this evening? All right, then we'll move right into board business. And the first thing we have up this evening is a resolution to approve the minutes of the village board meeting of January 14th, 2016. Anybody have any questions, modifications they'd like?
No,
If not, I'll entertain a motion and a second to accept the minutes as written.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Ippolito,
Aye.
Trustee Belkane,
Aye.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, next we have the minutes for the special village board meeting conducted on February 4th, 2016. Questions?
No.
All right, I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Trustee Belkane,
Aye.
Trustee Ippolito,
Aye.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, next is a resolution to approve the claims and warrants. Anybody have any questions on the bills? Carol?
No, Jake and I have already discussed the things that I had a question on.
Okay. Jerry?
No, I'm good.
No?
I'm good.
Judy? All right, I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the claims and warrants then.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Trustee Belkane,
Aye.
Trustee Ippolito,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, next we have an authorization to hire Megan Lessing to the title of Office Clerk 3 at a rate of $15 per hour, and the effective date of February 16th, 2016. Question? All set? All right, I'll entertain a motion in a second then.
Can we get-
I know. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Ippolito,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Trustee Belkane,
Aye.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, next is a resolution to approve Joe O'Neill, Secretary to the Planning and Zoning Boards, to attend the Introduction to Planning and Zoning Workshop on March 7th at a cost not to exceed $40.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Belkane,
Aye.
Trustee Ippolito,
Aye.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, next is a resolution for the authorization to pay Lou Engineers $11,092.82 for professional services rendered in December of 2015 related to the North Ave project, to be paid out of the North Avenue Reserve account. Questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion in a second then.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Trustee Ippolito,
Aye.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Trustee Belkane,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill,
Aye.
motion passes.
Okay, next is a resolution for authorization of the HPC to conduct a project related to the Robb Cemetery gravestone investigation. We did discuss this at the workshop. Mr. Elder, if you'd like to step up and just give us a brief rundown again, so for those that weren't here, or because it was a workshop, it wasn't televised, so
that's
this
true.
way you can give
Okay.
those people at home a little.
Well, Carl Lauer's here
Understand.
too. He's a
Yeah.
former
Carl,
chair.
would you come up, please?
You want to come up as well?
Yep.
I mean, but you have in front of you a proposal and a map that shows the site itself. For those of you who are not familiar with this, it's around 256 East Main Street, right?
Yeah, between
Right.
247 and
There's a
256.
there's a nice sign there, big tree, that's another way of looking, you can find it. And so, what we're looking for, quick history, brief one, this was an abandoned cemetery that, home rule message was done. Normally, an abandoned cemetery would go to the town, but the home rule message that was shepherded through by Senator Nozzolio and Assemblyman Johns, allowed it to come to the village signed off on it, thank you for doing that. And so now what we're looking for here is to see if there's any indications of gravestones or graves, not specifically digging for graves, rather looking for the signs of the graves themselves. So slight soil disturbances, discolorations in the soil, things like that. So Carl contacted somebody at MCC and
Ann Morton gave a presentation to us on how she wanted to do this. And at no cost, I might add, probing for the headstones. And if it's our belief that the headstones are turned down there. So we hope that Ann and her team can perhaps use her probe to feel the corners of the headstone and maybe expose it to find out who's buried there. And at this time, that's all we need to know.
right, we're not gonna
For-
go down more than a few inches.
Right, not
And
more than.
One
you know,
afternoon. So.
One afternoon.
Within
And,
45 days of today.
Right, within 45 days, they'd like to, the reason why it was timely is because Carl managed to connect with someone who would do it for free. So it's not gonna
Right.
cost the village anything, but it's gonna be done in conjunction with a class. So it was a great catch, and so what this will do is, they'll choose between 1 and 4 of those small areas you see there marked out, you know, the numbers on there. And just for those of you watching, those numbers are from a ground penetrating radar that found soil disturbances. So what'll happen is they'll choose between 1 and 4 of those to look at, and then that'll be what they'll try to do to figure out what might be there. But again, we're to stress minimum disturbance. So that's a big point here. We're not trying to dig up grave. We're trying to just discover what might be just below the surface. So,
Okay,
okay.
thank you
All right,
for the
thanks.
update, appreciate it.
If I could we
Yeah.
make sure that I get the opportunity to meet with her before she does this, assuming the board considers it and approves it? Many of the things she's talking about doing, we did when the ground penetrating radar work was done, so I'd hate to duplicate those.
Right.
And maybe we should go on to different spots. Every time that something was located, we did a probe of that site. and-
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So all these have been probed? These-
Yes. All those little dots.
She indicated to us that some ground penetrating radar techniques are not archaeological in nature. So you might not have been looking for exactly the same thing she may have been looking. We did try to address that with her a little bit. That's not to say it wasn't done well.
No, I can,
It's just say it might be done a little different.
is she gonna do a new ground penetrating radar?
No, she's simply gonna do, it's all surface, it's all very surface, what's the right word I want to find?
Oriented.
Graded.
Yeah, very surface graded oriented, thank you, that's the
Right.
word. So, yeah, so it's not like with the ground
I got the
penetrating. radar
sources right here.
She's gonna look at, she's gonna kind of use her experience as an archaeologist, which is beneficial.
No, that'd be great. I just love to share what we did already,
I
so,
think your point's good, so, yeah.
so we can maximize especially her free time.
right.
Well, don't
Absolutely.
you have that?
It's a good idea. Well, no, I think they just assumed that they would, I mean, we can stress that. We'll ask her to please make sure she's meeting with you. And as we said in there,
Sure.
the neighbors are gonna get informed, so it's not like
Right.
it's gonna be a snap. This is gonna be something we're gonna let people know about
Right.
before it happens.
Sure.
We had that.
Someone from the village gonna be
From
present?
Uh, we can arrange for someone to be present.
No, I'll be there.
Okay,
Well, someone should be there.
we'll be there.
Absolutely.
You're not just gonna let this person in the class out there and
No, we'll be
not have
there.
any clue what.
Judy will be there.
Somebody should be there to make sure that,
They
when
don't
you
get
say
out.
it's minimally intrusive, someone
Right.
should make sure that it in fact is minimally
That's a
intrusive.
good point.
Right, well, we'll stop their backhoe right at the curb.
Daryl has time.
You have an excellent, you have an excellent,
Jake will do that.
you have an excellent point, we'll make sure it happens.
We're just gonna use this.
Down from you.
Hey, Peter, Mr. Elder,
Yeah.
if you could just send an email to the entire board on the, maybe a week in advance of when you're going to do it,
Yeah,
so that we can, those who would like to be present can be present.
okay, you got it.
I'm gonna contact Ann Martin tomorrow,
Sure.
if you guys vote for it,
Right.
and she'll get started.
I think we're all in favor, so I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Ippolito?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane? Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Where does she teach?
Huh?
Good question. Where does she teach?
She's
Class
assistant
part-
professor at MCC, adjunct, that's the word I'm looking
She also has her own professional
Yeah.
corporation, so it's also part of that as well.
So the class is part of MCC?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the classes.
Yeah, actually, her assistant is enrolled in the class, and he's using this as class time. That's his training. That's why we're getting up
But she's overseeing the whole thing.
All right. Next, we have a resolution to authorize Mayor Cahill to sign the memorandum of understanding between the Friends of Webster Historic Preservation and the Village of Webster to complete the reconstruction of the freight depot. And I think we all have our revised edition here. Don, thank you for your input. Peter, you have a copy of this?
I do?
Yeah? You're okay with this?
I think so, yeah, I mean, I'll take it back to the board, we have a board meeting on Tuesday, but I don't believe, there was almost no changes, there was some.
Okay. Except the $1 per board foot.
Yeah, you know.
So who's gonna measure
You
that?
always say that, but you never put it in.
about.
It's understood. It's implied.
Oh, I see, it was like,
Verbal contract.
There you go.
Heard of those, right?
you know, just for fun, just so we feel good about that, maybe we should measure the work before.
Yeah. Well,
It'd be interesting to see how many there really are.
you might want to wait till after this weekend though, because it's mighty cold out there. Believe me. Any questions? All right. So I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Oh, she got you.
Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Ippolito?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So Peter, so the mayor's gonna sign this, and then you've gotta go back to your board and get them to approve it, then you'll sign it?
Because it's an amended version, I think
That's
I
fine.
should.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So,
Yes.
so just get me a copy of the signed one, and then I'll need, is it Friends of Webster Historic Preservation, Inc.?
Yes,
That's
technically.
the official name? Yeah. And what address do you use?
It's 59 Dunning Avenue. This is my address.
All right. Because I'll do the bill of sale.
Oh, it's, okay, thank you.
I want that dollar bill frame. All right. Next we have,
Settlement.
under attorney, Don, I put the settlement and release agreement. And this is settlement and release agreement with Jacobson Transportation Company and the Village of Webster regarding the streetlight that was hit adjacent to Smith Insurance on the corner, which is what, how many times has that thing been hit now, taken out? Twice that I know of.
No, that one only once.
Just, that's the
The
first one.
one up the road has been hit about 3 times.
And,
Still only 3 times.
right, in that corner, the streetlight in front of Barry's is out, the one directly across the street is out also.
One in front of Barry's was called in today. The one across the street, drove by about 1:15 and it was on.
It's off now, I think.
So is it again? So
Yeah, it was
must
off
be
last night too.
cycling.
Yeah, it's like
one
very
in
dark
front
in
of
that
it was
corner.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the village paid $1,377.50 to replace the pole, and in order to get reimbursed from the insurance company for the trucking company whose truck hit it, they need a settlement and release agreement signed, which is pretty standard.
Right.
So.
I just questioned this, that, like,
The
under,
board needs to approve it.
yeah, under A, it said that we were in dispute, and there's no dispute that I'm aware of. And then, I talked to Jake about this, and that's what he says, pretty much standard language.
Well, again, this is just their stack.
Right.
You know, normally, these things arise out of accidents, and
Sure.
accidents sometimes are disputed.
So does anybody have any issues with us getting reimbursed by authorizing them?
Just sign it. If you want the $1,300, you're gonna sign this.
Absolutely. I don't think I'm gonna have any no votes on this one. All right, so I'll entertain a motion in a second to authorize the mayor to sign this settlement and release agreement.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Trustee Ippolito.
Aye.
Trustee Belkane.
Aye.
Trustee Byers.
Aye.
Trustee Lancy.
Aye.
Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Done. All right, next is the comp and overtime report.
And there was silence.
Questions, anybody? Jake?
I honestly have not had a chance to review this, so
Okay.
it seems, makes sense, but certainly I always like to go over them and compare them, so.
Well, I will say this, the OT this winter is significantly less than it was last winter.
It's been a rough 12 hours this winter.
That's good, Jake.
I don't want to jinx it though. So.
Oh, by the way,
Really.
and this is also off topic, maybe I'll wait till you're done. Anybody have any questions regarding the comp and overtime report? Okay. Next, Jake, you're up, and,
Don,
you know the tip you gave me? Don, do you have anything else? I apologize. No? Okay. The tip you gave me, the Mississippi crockpot stew?
Yes.
Okay, well, I made it today. And you're right, it's very, very good. Yeah, so, thank you for that, by the way.
Absolutely.
All right,
really?
We're all sharing recipes now.
that's what we're doing.
I
Yeah.
couldn't have waited to the
All
hallway.
inclusive here, you know? Positive interaction, nothing wrong with that.
See, Peter's
Right?
working already.
Peter, you set the tone, buddy.
Thank you.
You know, next week, I'm sharing chili recipes next week because I make the best chili you've ever
So
had.
now the mayor's yelling out to the.
And I'm not afraid to brag about it. All right,
I
thanks,
was
Jake.
just thinking of potluck dinner meetings, that might be,
That's not a bad idea. Put the tables out here.
yeah, right. Just a couple updates. The West Main Street culvert project's gonna begin next week. We got pipe this morning and, getting some equipment delivered there. Met with the property owners on both sides today too. Everybody's been real cooperative and great. The church is letting us use part of the parking lot to store the equipment, and, So everything's going along good with the start of that, so, but that's gonna be going. I can't read my note here. Just to update quick on the compost, everything is off the site, basically. All the finished compost, unfinished compost, and biosolids that were stockpiled. Biosolids is normal operation, are generated, and we're coming up with a plan for the weekly disposal that this week's taken care of. And then we're gonna continue to move on. There's some little handwork inside the barn and stuff to do,
Right.
but we'll get that stuff done.
How'd you make out with High Acres?
Good, I've got some information back from them, so
All
I'm
right,
gonna throw all the facts and figures that we get together
okay.
and see what the best route is. Will and I have been continuing work on a pre-disaster hazard mitigation, our portion for the county there, and that's getting really close to getting done and being up. And then just normal snow reminders, where we follow a sensible salting model, so we salt only the intersections, hills, and curbs, so, drive to the conditions that are there.
Slopes on hills that you saw. What's the incline gotta be?
So the hills, we have
Kircher and,
we do Kircher, Baker, Daniel, the hill coming up near the salt storage there, Fuller Avenue, the hill on Fuller we do. Trying to think of Gordon, I know it's Fuller. I'm trying to think of the other areas, so sometimes we get hills on curves too, so,
Right.
like Holly.
Judson,
Yeah, Holly's the other one. I was
Mayor
thinking
Mayor
of.
Hefner.
Yep. Yeah. That
That'd be a good soapbox derby street.
would be, except for that turn at the end.
Yeah, be slow by then.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much.
You're done.
Great job on the compost. Appreciate that. Questions, anybody for Jake?
Oh,
No, guys, you're doing a great job.
All right, I'll entertain a motion in a second to close the meeting.
Make that motion.
Are you gonna close, or are you going in for executive session?
Oh, that's right, I apologize, yes, we do have an executive session this evening. So I'll entertain a motion in a second to go into executive session to discuss potential litigation involving the wastewater treatment plant and to also discuss negotiations with the CSEA union.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Trustee Polito?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy? Trustee Belkane? Mayor Cahill? Motion passes. 8:07.